Okay, here we are, Stephanie. Welcome
Brilliant.
to really good to see you. So this interview is with Stephanie Chivers. Really pleased to see you, Stephanie. Stephanie is a drugs and alcohol counsellor based in the UK. Stephanie and we've known each other a good few years now, haven't we? I met you at an event, but then I actually joined some of your groups, and I also went on one of your wonderful weekends where there was no alcohol, but there was lots of food and yoga and laughing and coaching and all sorts of stuff. So that was absolutely fantastic. So, Stephanie, would you like to introduce yourself, please?
Yeah, brilliant. Thanks, Sheila. Thanks for having me. Good evening, everyone, or whenever you're listening later. My name's Stephanie. I teach people how to stop drinking, taking drugs, and start living. Start living a bit's really important to me, because quite often what people do is they make changes to their drinking, and they'll come to me a few months in, they'll be like, oh, I'm just not feeling it. There's no pleasure in my life. I'm thinking of drinking again. I'm like, no. So not that I'm the fun police or I preach abstinence. That's not my thing. But I want, if people are going to reduce their drinking or be alcohol free, I definitely want them to enjoy the experience. I don't want it to be like, like dry, or, all the words associated with it are quite boring, aren't they? Do you want me to go into my background and why I do what I do?
I would love you to, because I think actually that would be a bit of a wake-up call to others to hear your story.
Okay, so about 15 years ago, I got myself into a bit of trouble, so I was having a bit of a difficult time. But really, it started as a teenager. But I'll try and keep it short. So as a teenager, I'm 52. So we sort of grew up in the free party generation. So drugs culture, alcohol, stuff like that was very much part of my lifestyle and how we grew up in my friendship group. So I had a lot of fun, but I also, as much fun was had with some not good times as well, as I'm sure you can imagine. Sort of culminated by the age of 35, where I was drinking as well, and got arrested 2 days before Christmas. So classic cliche. I was in custody and I wasn't released until Christmas Eve, which wasn't great. They were actually threatening keeping me in over Christmas because they were so fed up with me, which I don't blame them. A little bit out of order. But because of the seriousness of my offence, I was looking at a 3-month prison sentence.
Oh, wow.
So, yeah, it was a massive wake-up call, because I had 2 children, my own house, I had a great job. I just started doing my training as an NLP practitioner. But, then I had this whole other side, which happens quite a lot, actually. Professional people that are quite together, but actually they're drinking quite a lot. And you sort of have this weird sort of balance going on that, I suppose it's incongruence is what it is. That's definitely what it is, but you can't really see it for that at the time. But when I was in custody, I had plenty of time to think. So I had one of those sort of like moments where your life flashes before you very slowly.
Gosh, I bet.
Where I'm like, how did this happen? How did I end up here once I'd calmed down? And I realised that I was the common denominator in sort of all the events leading up to that. So I totally got that I was 100% responsible for my life, which was a real turning point for me, because I was like, well, if I got myself here, then I can get myself out of here. So when I got out of custody, even though I was looking at a 3-month prison sentence, I vowed that I would sort my life out. And that started with not drinking and not taking drugs. I didn't really think any further than that at the time, but I had no idea where that was going to take me. I just knew that that's what I needed to do, which has been the best decision I've ever made. And then from there, I went on to do my training, continued with my training, my NLP practitioner, and I've pretty much been in training since. I've done quite a lot of different coaching, therapeutic trainings, but I've also worked within behaviour change. So I've got my own personal story to share, but I've also done pretty much every job within treatment services. So I've worked within secure units and prisons and psychiatric units and homeless shelters. I've been a drug and alcohol practitioner. I've been a family worker, a team leader, a children's worker, an outreach worker, and I've been a service manager, and I've run 3 different treatment services. But now I just run my own business because I like it. I like working with people. So that's what I do. So I teach people how to stop drinking, taking drugs and start living, mostly using sort of holistic coaching NLP approaches, which is based on best practice. So what I've seen that works, working with thousands of people. So literally for the last 15 years, I have worked with thousands and thousands of people within different treatment services. So the techniques that I use are based on everything that we've seen that's worked within that environment. So it's best practice.
Sure. Wow, that's full on. So obviously there's a bit of a alcohol-free, it's quite trendy at the moment to be alcohol-free, but have you found that with lockdown, that's people have been drinking more again, or is it, what are you finding at the moment?
It's hard to tell, isn't it? It's really hard to tell, to get sort of a clear picture on that. There's stuff in the news that says we're drinking more, but I haven't delved into it to see how they know that. So something we know about the media is the media do not report accurately on alcohol, and they also don't report accurately on drugs, and they don't report accurately on data. So I tend to not listen to the media very much, and I'll wait for specific research to come out. And also the other problem that we have around research, particularly to do with alcohol, is sometimes it's funded by the alcohol industry, or the research group is very small. So it's like 100 people or something like that. Sure. You have to be a little bit careful about what you listen to. What I have seen from my perspective in my world is that some people have done very well throughout lockdown, because it's that classic thing of a shifting environment. So something that we know about drug and alcohol use is that when we change something, whether we want to or not, then that helps us make a change. So an example of that is in the Vietnam War, a lot of the servicemen in Vietnam used heroin, because that was the drug available in Vietnam. And also it's wartime, and it's well known that it was a very traumatic war. Lots of really heavy stuff happened. It wasn't very nice. But then when those servicemen came home, a lot of them just stopped using heroin, because it's a different environment, different circumstance. Obviously not all of them, but most of them were able to stop using heroin. So there's a lot of stuff about environment and change in terms of drug and alcohol use. So lockdown has worked really well for some people, because they're working from home, they're working less, they're not working at all, so less stress, more time with kids, real sort of
less socializing with their colleagues.
Less pubs, stuff like that. But for other people, you've got the other extreme where that hasn't worked. So working from home hasn't worked for them, because their structure and routine is gone. Not socializing isn't working for them. So you've got those that's what I'm seeing, is for some people it's really worked, and for some people it really hasn't, which is life, essentially. I do a little 5-day alcohol-free challenge, and the couple that I've done in lockdown, I would say people are drinking more in my 5-day alcohol-free challenge, but that's not really an accurate representation, because sometimes I'll do a 5-day alcohol-free challenge and I will get a lot of people in there that are drinking quite a lot, like 2 bottles of wine a day, and sometimes I'll get people that are drinking a bottle of wine, so it's very hit and miss.
Sure.
But yeah, I wouldn't like to say.
No. So we've already got some questions coming in. I know I shared some with you previously, but so in your mind, is there such a thing as responsible drinking?
Yeah, so great question. I love this question. I mean, obviously it depends what you call responsible drinking. So people talk about responsible drinking and moderating. Now they're funny words to use because they're not specific. What does that actually mean? So what I prefer to talk about is appropriate use of the drug. So yeah, absolutely. It is possible for people to use any substance in moderation and for it not to be a problem. Now, people hate it when I say this because it is any substance. So, that includes heroin, cocaine, cannabis, alcohol. So we can use any substance appropriately and in moderation. And actually, a lot of people do. It's just something that we don't talk about. We talk about it in alcohol. We don't talk about it in drug world very often, but we should talk about it in drug world. So yes, absolutely. But what I want people to think about is what is appropriate use of the drug. So alcohol, one of the things we can say about alcohol is it's a social lubricant. Now, there aren't many good things I can say about alcohol, and that's a fact. That's not just me being a killjoy. Factually, alcohol is a very harmful substance. There's nothing anybody can say about that. It just is. But one of the good things we can say about alcohol is it's a social lubricant. So that's what the drug is good for. So going to the pub, having a drink with your friends, having a drink with a meal, going to a wedding, having a drink, a christening, a celebration. And what we're talking about is having a drink, not having drinks.
Or a bottle.
So it's yeah, absolutely. So it's a substance that's designed to be used in very small amounts. It's a very harmful substance. It's highly addictive. It causes us a lot of problems. It's massively habit forming. It's pervasive in our culture. It's super, super easy for us to get into trouble with alcohol. So I'm a big fan of us making an informed choice about what we're putting into our body. So one of the first things I would say to someone is educate yourself about alcohol so you know what you're doing. So what I would like to see, so sometimes back in the old days when we used to go to pubs, I'd be in a pub and somebody would say to me, "Oh, what do you do for a job?" And I tell them, with conversation stopper, and I tell them, and they usually start telling me about their drinking. And they'd be like, "Is my drinking a problem?" And I'd be like, "Well, is it a problem for you?" And they're like, we talk about it, and then it's like, what is the amount of problem? So like a classic example is somebody saying to me, "Oh, I have a couple of beers a night." And I'd be like, well, a couple of beers a night isn't the end of the world. It's quite low on the units, but it's a highly addictive, harmful substance. My preference would be that you had more alcohol-free days than drinking days. And so like, for instance, you have 2 days where you drink and then you have 5 days where you're alcohol-free. I would feel a lot happier about that, because when people drink regularly or daily like that, it's really easy for us to drink more and to build up a tolerance. And that's where we get into trouble. So a classic example, and something that we see quite a lot of, is, life happens, something happens. So divorce, separation, house moves, you lose your job, children are ill, elderly parents, stuff happens. You're already drinking daily, something happens, and then you start drinking more and more and more, and your tolerance goes up. So that's really common. That's something that we see. Whereas if you're having more alcohol-free days and not drinking very often, you're already starting from a very low base point when, life starts to hit the fan, quite frankly, because it will do at some point.
Right, I've actually just had a question come in on text, actually. People are having trouble putting comments on there. So how can my husband see how he can cut down on his alcohol intake since lockdown? He's working from home and now starts drinking at 10 a.m. and he's drinking 3 or 4 bottles of wine a day.
Okay, so he needs some help. That's very, very serious. That's a high amount of alcohol use. He needs to either go and see his doctor straight away and tell the doctor how much he's drinking, or contact his local treatment service. He will need a detox, and he will need a medical detox, and he will probably need an inpatient medical detox. So it depends on your finances. So if you have available finances, so I'm talking if you've got probably about 5,000, I could probably help you find an inpatient detox space quite quickly, maybe in the next few weeks. But you can go to your doctor and go to your treatment service, and you will be put on a list, and they will monitor you until a free inpatient detox place comes up if money is an issue. If you get stuck with that, give me a shout. I'm more than happy to help out with that. That's very serious, and we need to get that sorted straight away.
Sure.
Just to give you an idea, so drinking 1 bottle of wine a day over a period of time is going to shorten your life by 7 years. Drinking 2 bottles of wine a day will shorten your life by 20 years. So 3 to 4 bottles of wine is heavy, heavy drinking, and we need to get that sorted straight away.
Okay. Well, she's listening to this at the moment, so any further questions that she passes through, then I'll obviously share with you. Okay, so moving on then. I've had this one a couple of times from different people. So alcohol is filling the boredom hole.
Okay.
And say, well, I'll have a drink because I've got nothing to do. And then they've gone, well, you've still got nothing to do even though you're having the drink.
Yeah, but you need to find something to do. It's like you're using a drug to fill a hole. So you have that awareness. You've asked the question. You know why you're using it. You're already ahead of the game. You're bored. You're using a drug because you're bored. Great awareness. Brilliant. Okay. So what can you do differently? What can you do instead of using a drug when you're bored? What are you interested in? What else can you do?
So what would you say then to people that I like a drink? I enjoy my red wine. I have a drink each day as part of my evening routine.
Okay, yeah, that's fine. If people are having 1 glass of wine a day and they're happy with that, that's great. I still want them to have alcohol-free days because they're still using a drug every day. So this is really important. So people say alcohol and drugs. We shouldn't say that. We say alcohol and drugs because that's convenient for the alcohol industry. And lots of other industries. But actually, we should just say drugs. So what usually happens, so when I run events, coaching days, quite often I'll do quite a lot of stuff around drugs and where alcohol sits in the context of illegal drugs. And probably 70 to 80% in the room don't see themselves as drug users. If you're drinking alcohol, you are a drug user. And if you are drinking alcohol every day, you are a daily drug user of a highly addictive, harmful substance. Now, that's a fact. So do you want to be a daily drug user? That would be my question to you. There's nothing wrong with you enjoying a glass of wine. I've got no problem with that. Do you really need to have a glass of wine daily? Do you really need to smoke a spliff daily? Do you really need to take heroin daily? Do you know what I mean?
So they're all in the same bucket. They're all drugs. So what does it do to your health? What health damage? What damage can you do to your body by drinking alcohol?
Well, what doesn't it do to your health is probably the better question. So alcohol is a toxin. It's a poison. So ingested in significant quantities, it's potentially going to cause problems for us. So alcohol is indicated in over 200 different diseases. So what also plays a factor here is genetics and lifestyle. Now, you cannot counteract the alcohol you're drinking with a healthy diet and exercise. That's another question I get asked quite a lot.
Yeah.
Well, if I drink, but if I go out on my bike every day and run and I eat loads of healthy foods, doesn't that counteract it? No, it doesn't counteract it, but it does help. It definitely helps, because you're looking after yourself. So lifestyle and genetics are a big part of it. And the genetics bit we don't necessarily know about. I mean, you might know if your mum and dad have smoked and drank all their life and they're still alive in their 80s, chances are your genetics are pretty good, but it's still a bit of a lottery. The thing, what's really hard with alcohol is like with tobacco, everybody knows that if you smoke, you're going to die young. Whereas with alcohol, it's definitely going to impact on your health, but how it's going to impact on your health, we just don't know because it's very much down to the individual. So the things that we used to see in alcohol treatment services that are the most common things are anxiety and depression. So alcohol will increase, cause and exacerbate anxiety. So if you struggle with anxiety and you're drinking, you need to reduce your drinking and have as many alcohol-free days as you can. Be alcohol-free for 3 months if you can. See if that improves your anxiety. Same with depression. It will not help your depression. In fact, any mental health problem, we always start with clearing the drugs first. And the other things we see are things like skin disorders. So really common, like skin is our biggest organ. Alcohol will it's a poison. It dehydrates you. You drink it, goes into your stomach, goes into your blood, impacts on every part of your body. So skin disorders are really common. There's no surprise that when you see people that are reduced or not drinking, their skin and their eyes look amazing.
Brighten up, don't they? Yes.
Yeah, you can see it. You can definitely see it. Stomach problems are really common as well because it's a poison and it's going into your stomach and it's highly acidic. So we see things like over acidity on low level stuff, but then you get into things like ulcers and gastritis, and you get into
leaky gut.
Cancers, esophageal bleeds, things like that. We also obviously liver problems. We see problems with the pancreas. We see fertility problems. We see, you know, erectile dysfunction, peripheral neuropathy, tingling in the hands and feet. It's empty calories as well, so weight gain can be quite common. Yeah, I mean, just to be clear, there is nothing of any use in alcohol whatsoever. So if you've read anything about the antioxidants or anything like that, it's complete rubbish. Complete rubbish. And also it's indicated and it increases your risk around cancers and different cancers. So, you know, it wasn't uncommon for us to be running groups, and you know, you had people in there that were you know, that had different cancers in the groups. So yeah, if you continue to drink, and you drink regularly, and you drink in significant amounts, and it's really hard because it's like, well, what's the significant amount? Everybody's different. At some point, it's going to impact on your mental health or your physical health. It's a ticking time bomb. And just to give you an example, so I was quite a heavy drinker, heavy binge drinker, but also a daily drinker. I was drinking 2 bottles of wine a day, sort of at my worst point. But then I could go out the weekend and I would drink non-stop all weekend. So I was definitely drinking more than that. Now I met women, I was in my 30s when I was doing that. And I met women in alcohol treatment services, younger than me, drinking less than me, dying from liver disease and esophageal bleeds.
Wow.
So you know, binge drinkers, female binge drinkers who are not drinking any more than probably their friends. That's where genetics and lifestyle come in. That's that extra component. So that's what those sort of general statistics, you know, a bottle of wine, if you're drinking a bottle of wine a night, takes 7 years off your life. 2 bottles of wine, 20 years. But the good news is, though, and this is why I'm a massive fan of reducing, so say you are drinking a bottle of wine a night and you're listening to this, and the 7 years is freaking you out, okay, just reduce it down to 4.5 units, which is half a bottle of wine. Then that reduces your risk down to you're only taking 2 years off your life. So you can see by drinking very low amounts, you significantly reduce your risks.
Sure. I mean, you've done a whole list there of where it affects our body, but it also affects our personalities, our sleep, our relationships, our work. Yeah, it affects so many different, not just because you may be a little bit intoxicated the night before, but the following day, it has a big impact on us. So, okay.
Energy levels, you know, on a very low level without even the serious stuff. It's you're not sleeping properly, it's impacting on your energy, weight gain, which impacts on your energy, which impacts on your sleep. You feel puffy, you don't like yourself, impacts on your self-esteem, anxiety and depression, impacts on your performance, relationship, finances. So it's this chip away, you know, it's just not very nice.
No. Someone just said, if someone's personality completely changes after a few drinks, does that indicate the person has a bigger problem with alcohol?
No, not at all. It doesn't. Sometimes that happens with people. Sometimes,
like I say, it's social lubricant, isn't it? So sometimes it gives them that confidence or whatever. Okay. How does the alcohol affect the sleep? Because obviously quite a few people say, well, I slept well last night after all that drinking, but it's not the same sort of sleep, isn't it? It's not restful sleep. It's not nurturing, healthy sleep, healing sleep.
Yeah, and as you get older, you'll notice the difference. So something that we know as well is that particularly over 50s, your tolerance for alcohol goes down. So you drink less and you feel the impact more. So if you've got to sort of 50 and you haven't really sorted your drinking out, you're going to really start noticing it in your sleep. So alcohol impacts on your ability to get good quality sleep. It impacts on your ability to get REM sleep. So you're not getting that good quality sleep. So sometimes what we see is when people are reducing or they're taking a break is they feel tired and they struggle to sleep because they've been using alcohol to get off to sleep because it's a depressant and it relaxes you. So you get off to sleep, but then you're not having good quality sleep. So you don't feel rested. And there's all the other stuff that we talked about as well, the anxiety, the self-esteem, the energy, the weight gain, which also impacts on sleep, the stomach stuff too. There's so much going on that sometimes it takes a little bit of time for your body and brain to repair. So that's where water, all the stuff you teach, I'm sure, Sheila, water, good food, exercise, and that repairs the body. And what's amazing is the human body has a fantastic ability to repair itself, and the brain.
Absolutely, yeah.
So if you put the good stuff in and you stop putting the crap in, you're going to feel better.
So if there's anyone that's watching this that is thinking that they wish to reduce or give up alcohol, what would you say would be the first best steps? Because I know that before you have alerted us to the fact that, you know, especially with that question that came in earlier, some people cannot just give up alcohol. They have to have some intervention. But if you're 2 glasses of wine or 3 glasses of wine every other night or something like that, but you want to cut that down, what would you suggest would be the best way?
Yeah, so the first thing to say, going back to what you said, we sort of covered it a little bit, but I'll be specific just in case. So one of the other problems with alcohol is physically and psychologically addictive. So that means if you drink daily in significant amounts, or you drink significant amounts in a binge, if you stop suddenly, you could go into withdrawal. And withdrawal is anxiety, paranoia, sweating, shaking, whole body shakes, fits, hallucinations, psychosis, and it can be fatal. And this is why, you know, I go on and on and on about alcohol. I want people to be educated and make an informed choice. So if you're worried about the amount you're drinking and stopping, please talk to your doctor, your treatment service, or message me. I don't mind if you don't want it on your medical record. You know, I'm quite good at assessing whether somebody's physically dependent and giving them good advice. So yeah, I don't mind if somebody contacts me. But if you're not drinking to those levels, and you just want to reduce, the first thing I would say is educate yourself. There's a number of different ways you can do that, so you're making an informed choice about alcohol. So one of my favorite books about alcohol is Drink by Professor David Nutt. I'll make sure you've got the link. Drink by Professor David Nutt, which is super hardcore medical research, but if you like that type of stuff, it's really good. He goes into a lot of detail. I've got a free ebook that's the opposite end of the spectrum, which is more general and self-helpy. And I've got some free videos as well that, you know, if you haven't got much time, make it really clear about the risks associated with alcohol. So I always say educate yourself first. And you need to know how much you're drinking before you make a decision about what you're going to do. So in all my groups in the 5-day challenge, the first thing I get people to do is tell me how much you're drinking.
And be honest.
Yeah, because can you stop? Do you want to reduce? Is there a choice? You know, what do you need to do? That's the first thing. So educate yourself, make an informed choice, be aware of how much you're drinking, how many units you're drinking, and then what can you do? So it's about measuring out your drinks as well and understanding units, which is quite easy to do. I'm happy to signpost people with that. Now, some of the things that I would say to people is, you know, if you can just stop and you want to, great, go for it. You know, have some alcohol-free time. You know, there's no harm in that at all. But if you want to reduce, you can as well. It doesn't matter. It's a very individual thing. There's a lot of stuff out there about, oh, you can't reduce and people can't moderate. That's bollocks. Don't listen to any of that. It's people talking about their own experience. There's a lot of stuff about abstinence out there. Don't listen to it. All right. Lots of people reduce. Lots of people can have an occasional drink. So delay your start time. That's really good. So if you've noticed that you're working from home and you're drinking earlier, or you're not working so much, then delay your start time. Like start by 15 minutes and do 30 minutes and 45 and an hour. Like have a soft drink first and drink it slowly. Make sure you have some alcohol-free days. It's really important. You could alternate, you know, drinking days, alcohol-free days, and then build up your alcohol-free days. Be honest with yourself about what alcohol is for you. Why are you using it? What is it? Are you using it because you're bored? Is it a crutch? Are you stressed? You know, using it to get to sleep? Just be aware of why you're using it and what it gives you, and then think about how else you can get that thing. Because if you take something away, you've got to replace it with something, you know. So if you're using it to sleep, how else are you going to get to sleep?
Sure,
you're using it to relax.
Yeah, and that someone's just asked the question actually, because you're saying look at alternatives. What would you use as an alternative social lubricant?
Well, it depends on the environment. Do you even need a social lubricant? So one of the things I talk about is learning how to connect without alcohol. So if I'm in a bar, I'm not drinking, and I can connect with people without alcohol. I mean, if you're at a live concert, do you want to smoke a spliff, or do you want to eat some hash cake? Or if you're at a spiritual event, do you want to do some E or some acid? See, the drugs workers coming out in me now.
Yeah, it really is.
Everybody's going back. But this is like, you know, yeah, there's lots and lots of different ways that you can, it depends where you're going and what you want to get and how that is for you. It's a very individual thing.
Right, here's an interesting one for you, Stephanie. How were you able to stop drinking alcohol?
Well, I just stopped, which was naughty.
Because you were thrown in a prison cell, police cell.
Well, yeah, that didn't help. So, yeah, back then there wasn't really the support available that there is now. I didn't know what I know now either. So I actually had a withdrawal, and I was very lucky that it wasn't dangerous. So I did have a withdrawal for about 5 or 6 days and was very unwell. So for me, my motivation was huge. My motivation was fear. It was fear that I would ever end up in that situation again. It was fear that I would put myself and other people's lives at risk again. That wasn't okay for me. It was a real wake-up call. I understood my behaviour and what I was doing, and I didn't want to be that person. So my motivation was high. It was really high, and I had a lot to lose. House, job, kids, a lot. Sure. And I also had a nutty ex-husband breathing down my neck, and that's all he needed was me making a mistake. So I had to be squeaky clean after that. Sure. You know, for years he had me in court and was giving me a hard time. So it was just like, you know, there was so many reasons for me not to. I kept busy. Being busy worked very well for me. I planned a lot of stuff in. I just delved into my passions. So I did a lot of training, and I still do a lot of training. Personal and professional development is one of my passions. Human behaviour is. So my first year I did my NLP Practitioner. So I was doing loads of training, loads of study, loads of practice. I was in the gym a lot. I was running. I was cycling. I did a lot of dancing. So if anybody,
you love your dancing, don't you?
Yeah. So if anybody looks into my story, sort of about 6 months in, somebody said to me, did I like dancing? I was like, yeah, I love dancing. And did I want to go to a dance event? And I was like, yeah. And I had no idea where I was going. I was like, nothing better to do, you know, cost £5. So I went to a modern jive night, which was hilarious. And I had a really good time. And it was just really simple. It was like, cost me £5. Nobody knows me. Nobody knows who I am. It's not about drugs and it's not about alcohol. I can come here every week and have a dance, and it's lovely. And I just started doing that, and I got more and more into it. I made friends. I went to dance weekenders. I did different dances. I competed. I traveled around the world. So really it was my training and my work, because I did really well with my work and just sort of went from job to job to job with my training. So I fed my soul and I explored my passions is definitely what I did. So I looked at what alcohol and drugs gave me, which was excitement and fun and all those types of things. But then I replaced it. So I didn't just stop. I looked at all areas of my life and I made changes now I needed to. My life was a mess. I made changes to my parenting, to my house, to my work, to my training, literally everything, to my social life, to my friendship group, the whole lot. Not everybody needs to do that, but it's an example of when we make changes, you reap the rewards. Totally.
I often say about removing things in your life, and it could be people, it could be activities or your work or something like that are not feeding you in the right way, are actually making you feel bad about yourself, and look towards things that excite you, that motivate you, that embrace you. And I guess that's what you did. You just flipped things on their side so that you could actually focus on the things that made you, like, say, what did you say? Explored your passion and expressed your soul. Was that what you said?
Had my soul. Yeah. So I was so lucky, whether it was serendipity, I don't know what it was, but so I literally started my NLP practitioner just before I got arrested. So I'd already been doing some courses. I'd already been dabbling in self-help. It was already there. And my trainer had clocked me, because my first training day, I turned up, I was hungover and on a come down. He knew it. I'd been using the night before, I'd been partying. He clocked me straight away. So then when I got arrested and I called him up, it wasn't a surprise for him. But doing the NLP practitioner meant that essentially I was in therapy for my first year. So I was scrubbed and reloaded and reprogrammed in that first year. Sure. And that's a massive part of why I did so well. So I didn't just do it on my own. It wasn't just magic. I was in therapy for a year. And then I continued with that personal and professional development training and went on and did my master practitioner, which took things to a whole other level.
Sure. Wow. Do you know, we've had some lovely comments coming through. So much valuable information given here. This is wonderful. And someone just said, thank you for being so open and honest. I know that I was, I love hearing your story because I think it does have a big impact on people to see, shit happens to all of us. But then how you get yourself out of that situation and turn your life around. So we haven't got any other more questions at the moment. Is there anything you would like to leave with us, Stephanie? I know that you said that people can contact you and you're going to give us your details so we can put all the links to the things that you've already mentioned in this interview. But I want to thank you so much for coming on here and being part of our community. And I'm going to be doing a course with you myself, aren't I, soon? So I'm looking forward to that. And
brilliant.
Yeah. So if people just say now anyway, but I will put it as a link as well. How can people contact you?
My website is ichange21.com. But I'll make sure you've got the link. And on my website, you can download my free ebook. It's also on Amazon in paperback. It's called There Is No Magic Button. It's a very easy read. If you are the grammar police, do not read it. It will bother you. I'm not good at my job because of grammar and spelling. Let's just put it that way. And
did you say that's the free ebook as well? Did you say?
Fantastic. Yeah, it's a free ebook on my website, and my email is stephaniechivers@hotmail.co.uk, and I'll make sure you've got that as well. So if people want to, they can email me. I'm on Facebook. You can friend me on Facebook and message me. I really don't mind. This is what I do. People ask me questions every day, and I'm happy to answer your questions and signpost you. And all I would say is if you haven't had an alcohol-free day, have some alcohol-free days. And if you haven't taken a month off booze, do it. You've got nothing to lose from having alcohol-free days and having a bit of time off booze. If you don't like it, you can go back to drinking. But nobody ever complained to me about being alcohol-free.
No, absolutely not.
With that.
No. Thank you so much. I know that I'm going to get lots more comments. Oh, great insights. A few of my friends need to watch this. If someone's just said, thank you both so much. Yeah, getting some nice comments coming through. So, really appreciate you being with us. And if we do get a load more questions, would you be happy to come back?
Absolutely. And if I'm in the group, I can see the questions. People can tag me and I can just pop in and answer them. It's not a problem.
Fantastic. That's great. Thank you so much, Stephanie. We look forward to seeing you again soon.
Yeah, thanks, Sheila.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.